Okay, settle in, grab a drink, maybe some tissues. I don't know, maybe not, but just in case. This is one of those stories that kind of creeps up on you. It starts like any other day, completely normal, maybe even a little boring, and then, bam. Life throws you a curveball wrapped in fur and desperation. You know how sometimes a single second splits your life into before and after? Like, you can pinpoint the exact moment the world tilted on its axis just a little bit? This is one of those times. And it all started on Highway 82, somewhere between Lubbock and, well, nowhere really. So, picture this, late August, Texas. Hot doesn't even begin to cover it. The kind of heat that radiates off the asphalt in waves, making the horizon shimmer like a mirage. We were about 3 days into our epic cross-country road trip, the classic Griswold family adventure, minus the station wagon with wood paneling. We were driving our trusty, slightly too small for this many people in their junk SUV, affectionately nicknamed the Wanderer. Destination, Colorado Springs, to visit my folks. My husband, Mark, was driving, doing his stoic pilot impression, navigating the endless stretch of highway. I was riding shotgun, alternating between DJ Judy's, snack distributor, and peacekeeper for the backseat delegation. Said delegation consisted of our 2 kids, Liam, 14, who was surgically attached to his phone, occasionally grunting in response to direct questions, standard teenager stuff, and Chloe, 8, who was oscillating between drawing furiously in her notebook and asking, "Are we there yet?" with the persistence of a leaky faucet. The car was filled with that specific road trip aroma, a potent mix of stale air conditioning, Fritos, sunscreen, and kid sweat. Memories. Said delegation consisted of our 2 kids, Liam, 14, who was surgically attached to his phone, occasionally grunting in response to direct questions, standard teenager stuff, and Chloe, 8, who was oscillating between drawing furiously in her notebook and asking, "Are we there yet?" with the persistence of a leaky faucet. The car was filled with that specific road trip aroma, a potent mix of stale air conditioning, Fritos, sunscreen, and kid sweat. Memories. We'd been driving for hours. The landscape was flat, dusty brown, punctuated by the occasional pump jack nodding slowly like some prehistoric bird. The radio was playing some generic country song about trucks and heartbreaks. Chloe was humming off-key. Liam was deep in whatever digital universe held his attention, and Mark and I were having one of those silent conversations married couples specialize in, the one about whether we should stop at the next dubious-looking gas station or push on for another hour. That's the before. Utterly mundane, almost hypnotic in its predictability. Then came the after. It happened fast. Mark suddenly stiffened, his eyes narrowed. "What the?" he muttered, hitting the brakes harder than usual. Not a screeching halt, but abrupt enough that my iced tea sloshed, and Liam actually looked up from his phone with an annoyed, "Hey, Dad, you made me lose my streak." "Sure, Liam," I said, peering through the windshield. "What is it, Mark?" "Look," he pointed. Maybe 50 yards ahead, right near the center line of this desolate 2-lane highway, was a crumpled heap. At first glance, it looked like a discarded sack, or maybe a tumbleweed that had met an unfortunate end. But as we rolled closer, the shape resolved itself. It was a dog, a medium-sized, scruffy, brownish-red dog, and it wasn't moving. My breath caught in my throat. "Oh my God, Mark. Is it?" He pulled the car over onto the dusty shoulder, the tires crunching on the gravel. He cut the engine, and the sudden silence felt deafening, amplifying the relentless Texas sun beating down. "Stay in the car," he commanded, his voice tight. He opened his door, the heat blasting in immediately. "No way," I said, already unbuckling. "I'm coming." Chloe piped up from the back, her voice trembling slightly. "Mommy, what is it? Is it sleeping?" "We don't know, sweetie. You and Liam stay put, okay? Lock the doors." I gave Liam a look that said, "I mean it." He nodded, his usual teen apathy momentarily replaced by wide-eyed curiosity, maybe even concern. Mark and I approached cautiously. The heat was suffocating. There wasn't another car in sight, just endless roads stretching in both directions under a vast, indifferent blue sky. As we got closer, we saw it wasn't dead. Its side was moving, shallow, ragged breaths, but it was clearly injured. Badly. It was lying on its side, one back leg bent at an unnatural angle. Its fur was matted with dirt and, God, was that blood? Yes, definitely blood, dark and sticky around its hip and leg. It looked thin, ribs faintly visible beneath the rough coat. Flies were already starting to buzz around. It lifted its head weakly as we neared, maybe 10 feet away. Its eyes were half closed, clouded with pain and exhaustion. It let out a tiny, pathetic whimper that just shattered my heart into a million pieces. It wasn't aggressive, just broken, terrified. "Oh, you poor thing," I whispered, crouching down slowly. Mark stood beside me, his hands on his hips, surveying the situation with that practical engineer's mind of his, but I could see the worry etched on his face. "Must have been hit," he said quietly. "Looks like the back leg is broken, maybe the hip too." The dog whimpered again, trying to shift slightly, but then yelped in pain and lay still, panting heavily. Its tongue lolled out, dry and pale. "He's dehydrated, Mark. He needs water." "We have that bottle in the car," I said, already turning back. "Careful, Sarah. We don't know if he's friendly. He's hurt and scared." "He's not going to hurt anyone," I insisted, maybe foolishly, but looking into those pain-filled eyes, all I saw was desperation. I hurried back to the car. Chloe had her face pressed against the window, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Is he okay, Mommy? Is he hurt?" "He's hurt, honey, but we're going to help him." "Unlock the door." Liam unlocked it. "Is it bad?" he asked, his voice hushed. "Pretty bad," I admitted, grabbing the half-full bottle of water from the console and the collapsible silicone dog bowl we inexplicably still had from our old Labrador who passed years ago. Sentimentality sometimes pays off, I guess. I went back to Mark and the dog. I poured some water into the bowl and pushed it slowly, gently towards the dog's nose. It flinched slightly, then its nostrils twitched. It stretched its neck forward agonizingly slowly and started lapping at the water. Weak, desperate slurps that echoed in the silence. "Good boy," I murmured soothingly. "That's a good boy." Mark was scanning the road again. No collar, no tags. Looks like a stray. God knows how long he's been out here, or how long since he was hit. The dog finished the water quickly, looking up at me with slightly clearer eyes, maybe a flicker of something other than pain. Hope? Gratitude? Or maybe I was just projecting. "Okay," Mark said, taking charge. "We can't leave him here. He'll die." My heart leaped. "So we take him?" "We have to find the nearest vet. He needs proper medical attention." Mark pulled out his phone. "Let's see. Reception is terrible out here, naturally." He held the phone up, walking a few steps away. "Okay, got one bar. Searching, nearest town looks like Dust Devil Creek, or something equally charming. About 30 miles back the way we came. Says there's an animal clinic there. Dr. Henderson, 30 miles back. That meant at least an hour detour, probably more. Our schedule, already tight, was about to be blown to smithereens. I glanced back at the car, at the kids waiting. This wasn't just a quick stop anymore. "How do we move him?" I asked, looking at the dog's injured leg. "We can't just pick him up." Mark thought for a second. "The emergency blanket. And the first aid kit. We can try to use it as a makeshift stretcher." It was a plan. A slightly flimsy plan, but a plan nonetheless. Mark retrieved the thin mylar blanket while I sat near the dog, murmuring nonsense words, trying to keep it calm. It watched me with those soulful, weary eyes. Its fur was coarse, its body radiating heat, not just from the sun. I suspected a fever. Its breathing was still shallow. Mark returned, unfolding the silvery blanket. "Okay, boy," he said softly, approaching the dog from behind. "We're going to help you. Just stay calm." Moving him was tense. Every slight shift caused a whimper or a yelp. We slid the blanket underneath him as gently as humanly possible, coordinating our movements, trying not to jostle the injured leg. He snapped weakly once, more out of fear than aggression, but didn't struggle much. It was like he knew we were trying to help, or maybe he was just too weak to fight. Finally, we had him centered on the blanket. Okay, lift slowly. On three. 1, 2, 3. We lifted. The blanket sagged, but held. The dog weighed maybe 40 pounds, maybe less. He felt fragile, like a bird with broken wings. We carried him slowly, carefully, back towards the SUV. The kids were out of the car now, standing nearby, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. Chloe was openly crying. Is he going to be okay, Daddy? We're taking him to a doctor, sweetie, Mark said, his voice strained from the effort and the emotion. They'll fix him up. Getting him into the back of the SUV was another challenge. We had luggage, coolers, sleeping bags. We had to rearrange everything, shifting bags, stuffing things into footwells. Liam, surprisingly, jumped in to help without being asked, moving suitcases with a focused intensity one hadn't seen all trip. We finally cleared enough space in the cargo area. We lined it with an old towel, then carefully, painstakingly slid the dog, still on the blanket, into the back. He collapsed onto the towel, panting hard, eyes squeezed shut against the pain. Chloe immediately wanted to sit back there with him. No, honey, I said gently. He needs space, and he might bite if he gets scared. We'll all stay up front. She looked crestfallen but nodded. We piled back into the car. The atmosphere was thick with worry. The cheerful road trip vibe had completely evaporated, replaced by a heavy silence. Mark started the engine, cranked the AC, and carefully turned the car around, heading back towards Dust Devil Creek. The 30-mile drive felt like 300. Every few minutes, I'd twist around in my seat to check on our unexpected passenger. He was mostly quiet, just panting, occasionally letting out a soft moan that tore at my heart. Chloe kept asking questions. What will the doctor do? Will he get a cast? Can we keep him? One step at a time, sweetie, I kept saying, though my own mind was racing with the same questions. Keep him? The thought was absurd. We lived in a suburban house with a small yard. We hadn't had a dog in years. We were on vacation. But looking back at that poor, suffering creature, the alternative felt unthinkable. Liam was quiet, staring out the window, but he wasn't looking at his phone anymore. I saw him glance back towards the dog a few times, his brow furrowed. We finally reached the outskirts of Dust Devil Creek. It was exactly as charming as it sounded. A few dusty streets, some tired-looking buildings, a single blinking traffic light. The animal clinic was a small, white-clapboard building with faded blue trim. Henderson Animal Clinic, the sign read. A picture of a cheerful cartoon beagle was peeling off the front window. Mark pulled into the small gravel parking lot. Okay, let's do this. We explained the situation to the receptionist, a kind-faced woman with tired eyes who seemed unfazed. Dr. Henderson, a tall, lanky man with weathered hands and a calm demeanor, came out immediately. He took one look at the dog in the back of our car and nodded grimly. All right, let's get him inside. Bring him through the back. He and Mark carefully carried the dog in on the mylar blanket. Chloe, Liam, and I followed them into the examination room. It smelled strongly of antiseptic and animals. The dog whimpered as they lifted him onto the cold metal table. Dr. Henderson was gentle but efficient. He checked the dog's vitals, examined the leg, his touch surprisingly soft. Definitely a fracture, he confirmed, pointing to the femur. Looks like a clean break, thankfully. Possible hip dislocation too. Need x-rays to be sure. He's severely dehydrated, malnourished, running a fever. Got some nasty road rash here. He cleaned the wound gently. The dog flinched but didn't fight. Poor fella's been through the ringer. He looked at us. He's a stray, you said? No collar, no chip. He scanned the dog quickly with a handheld device. Nope, nothing. He sighed. Well, folks, here's the situation. He needs fluids, antibiotics, pain medication immediately. He needs that leg set and stabilized. If the hip's involved, maybe surgery. It's treatable, but it's going to take time and money. He paused, letting that sink in. Being a stray in a small town, his options aren't great if someone isn't willing to take financial responsibility. The county shelter is overwhelmed, and honestly, he didn't finish the sentence, but we knew what he meant. Silence hung in the room. Mark looked at me. I looked at the kids. Chloe had tears welling up again. Liam was looking intently at the dog, then at Dr. Henderson. How much? Mark asked quietly. Dr. Henderson gave us an estimate for the initial stabilization, X-rays, casting, and medication. It wasn't cheap. It was definitely below the vacation budget territory. Mark rubbed his temples. We're just passing through, he started, sounding conflicted. Before he could continue, Liam spoke up, his voice clear and steady. We can't just leave him. I stared at my son. This was the kid who barely noticed anything beyond his screen. But his expression was earnest, pleading. Chloe nodded vigorously. Please, Daddy. Please. We found him. We have to help him. I looked at the dog on the table. He'd opened his eyes again and was looking around the room, still panting, but maybe a little less terrified. He looked lost. I met Mark's eyes. We didn't need to speak. That silent conversation again. It was crazy. It was irresponsible. It completely derailed our plans. But we knew what we had to do. We'll take responsibility, Doctor, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. Do whatever you need to do to help him. Mark nodded in agreement, pulling out his wallet. Whatever it takes. Dr. Henderson smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. All right then. Good people. He patted the dog gently. Let's get you fixed up, fella. The next few hours were a blur. We waited in the small, slightly stuffy waiting room while Dr. Henderson and his assistant worked on the dog. Chloe drew pictures of him running and playing. Liam actually read one of the old National Geographic magazines on the table. Mark made phone calls, rearranging hotel reservations, letting my parents know we'd be delayed. I mostly paced, my stomach churning with a mixture of anxiety and a strange, fierce protectiveness towards the animal we'd known for less than 3 hours. Finally, Dr. Henderson came out. Okay, he said, wiping his hands on his scrubs. X-rays confirmed a clean fracture of the femur. Hip is okay, just bruised. We've cleaned him up, gave him fluids, antibiotics, strong pain meds. Got his legs set in a cast. He led us back to a recovery kennel. There, lying on a soft blanket, was our dog. He looked cleaner, less haggard. His back leg was encased in a bright blue cast. He was groggy from the medication. But when he saw us, his tail gave a single, tentative thump against the bedding. Thump. That tiny movement, that small acknowledgement sealed the deal. He'll need to stay here overnight for observation, Dr. Henderson said. But he's stable. He's a tough little guy. Needs rest, medication, and follow-up care, obviously. And lots of TLC. We found a motel in Dust Devil Creek, the only motel, aptly named the Dusty Spur. It was basic, cleanish, and smelled faintly of stale cigarettes. But it felt like a palace after the emotional roller coaster of the day. That night, none of us could talk about much else besides the dog. What would we call him? What would happen next? Chloe suggested names like Lucky or Miracle. Liam, surprisingly thoughtful, suggested Dusty, after the town where we found help. Or maybe Rusty, because of his brownish-red color. We kind of liked Rusty. It suited his scruffy, resilient nature. The next morning, we went back to the clinic. Rusty, as we were now tentatively calling him, was awake. He was still weak, still wary. But when Chloe approached the kennel slowly and spoke softly, he wagged his tail again, a bit more enthusiastically this time. Dr. Henderson gave us instructions, medication, a follow-up plan, find a vet near my parents' place in Colorado, and a hefty bill, which Mark paid without flinching. Then came the moment of truth. So, Dr. Henderson said, "You taking him with you?" We all looked at each other. Then at Rusty. He looked back, those soulful eyes seeming to understand the weight of the question. "Yeah," Mark said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Yeah, I think we are." The rest of the road trip was different. We had Rusty nestled carefully in the back, on a bed of old towels and blankets. We had to stop more often for him to relieve himself, an awkward process involving a sling Mark rigged up to support his hindquarters, to give him medication, just to check on him. The car smelled distinctly of dog now, but nobody complained. Rusty slowly started to come out of his shell. He'd cautiously lick Chloe's fingers when she offered them through the kennel bars we bought at a Walmart along the way. He'd rest his head near Liam's hand when Liam sat quietly beside him during stops. He even started eating properly, wolfing down the special food Dr. Henderson recommended. When we finally pulled into my parents' driveway in Colorado, days later than planned, explaining the extra passenger was an adventure in itself. But my folks, bless them, took one look at Rusty, heard the story, and immediately fell in love. My dad even helped build a ramp so Rusty could manage the porch steps with his cast. Over the next few weeks, while we visited, Rusty healed. His cast came off, replaced by careful rehab exercises. His personality emerged, a sweet, gentle soul with a goofy side, despite everything he'd been through. He loved belly rubs, chasing tennis balls at a hobble, then a trot, then a run, and sleeping with his head on Mark's feet. He became especially attached to Liam, following him around like a furry, three-legged shadow, soon to be four-legged again. The question of what to do when our vacation ended hung in the air, but deep down, we all knew the answer. There was no way we could leave him. That moment on Highway 82 hadn't just been about finding a dog. It felt like the dog had found us. The drive home back to Texas was noisy and chaotic, but in the best way possible. Rusty, now much healthier and integrated into the family pack, took up his rightful place, often trying to sneak onto the seats despite the rules. So yeah, that's the story of how our perfectly planned, predictable family road trip got completely derailed by a scruffy, injured stray dog in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Rusty is snoring on the rug at my feet as I tell you this, completely healed, a permanent, beloved member of our family. He's got a slight limp sometimes when he gets tired, a little reminder of his rough start. Sometimes the biggest detours lead you exactly where you need to be. We went looking for a vacation, a break from the routine. Instead, we found hardship, made a tough choice, and ended up with more love than we could have imagined. That flash of brown fur on the blindingly hot asphalt wasn't just an injured animal. It was a turning point, a lesson in compassion delivered on a desolate highway. It was the moment our family road trip turned into the journey of how Rusty found his way home. What would you have done in that situation? Have you ever had an experience like this, where an unexpected moment changed everything? Let me know down in the comments. I read every single one, and I'd love to hear your stories or your thoughts on ours. And hey, if Rusty's story touched your heart, or if you just enjoy tales of unexpected adventures and happy endings, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps more people find our story. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future updates or other stories we might share. Thanks so much for listening, truly. We'll see you in the next one.